Hey, what's going on everybody? Barrett here with Spec of Tech. Welcome to the channel. Today we have an interesting video for you guys. I'm going to compare the Tonewinner D8000 Pro and Tonewinner D9000 to some of the other subwoofers that I've had in my room, like the JTR CAP2400, the Arendal 1723 2V, and dual SVS PB16 Ultras. I always make a habit of doing compression testing or compression measurements of every subwoofer that comes through my doors in the front right-hand corner of my room. That way in the future when I do bring in other subwoofers, I can kind of compare them to each other to see how they stack up. But do keep in mind that these measurements are specific to my room. They're not anechoic measurements. These are measured in my room. So you are going to see the peaks and nulls of my room because I measure the raw subwoofer. I don't flatten it out with any room calibration. So all the peaks and nulls that you are going to see, don't attribute that to the subwoofer itself. Attribute that to my room specifically. You should be able to accomplish a fairly flat result with all of these subwoofers using room calibration. So again, please ignore the peaks and nulls in my room. And speaking of room calibration, all the measurements that you are going to see is no room calibration enabled. Like I said, it's just the raw output of the drivers. Now these measurements are specific to the output and we are going to get right into these measurements, but I do want to point out one more thing, that these subwoofers do have different sound modes. For example, the Tonewinners have a strong, a deep, and a normal mode, and the SVS Ultras have their own standard or deep mode or extended mode, I believe they call it. And the Arendal 1723s also have different modes. They just call it EQ 1, 2, and 3. And the JTR CAP2400 doesn't really have different modes, but it does have a dial which essentially just increases or decreases the low end depending on the size of the room to try and help you attain a flat result. So I will do my best to compare these subwoofers apples to apples. It may not be exactly perfect, but it should give you an idea of the output and how close they are in output, at least in my room specifically, which should give you a general idea on their output. One more thing before we get into the room measurements. In my last week's video, Amir was offering a 10% discount on the Tonewinner D8000 Pro using this coupon code along the bottom of your screen here. Now I don't know if all 10 have been purchased because this coupon code was only good for the first 10 purchased, but if you guys are interested in the D8000 Pro and there's still some room on this coupon code, then you can use this coupon code for the D8000 Pro. But now Amir is also offering a 10% discount on the D9000 using the exact same coupon code across the bottom of your screen here, and I have dropped links to that subwoofer down in the description below also. But this coupon code is only good for the first 10 D9000s purchased as well. So starting from when this video drops, the first 10 people to use this coupon code will get a 10% discount. So in the interest of time, we do have quite a few measurements to get through. Let's hop over on my computer and have a look at the room measurements of these different subwoofers in my room. All right, so here we are on my computer, and we're going to start off comparing the D8000 Pro and D9000 to two or dual SVS PB16 Ultras that I measured in my room. So really, the two PB16 Ultras clearly have the advantage here. So just for quick reference, the pricing on the PB16 Ultra is currently $2,900 US each. So you're looking at about $5,800 US worth of subwoofers here, and the pricing currently on the D8000 Pro is $2,299 US, and the D9000 is $2,399 US. All right, let's start by clearing all the measurements from the Tonewinner subwoofers so we can have a look at the compression testing with the SVS PB16 Ultra subwoofers. Now I only measured the SVS down to about 10 hertz. I believe I did measure the Tonewinners down to 5 hertz, but don't worry about that anyway because they're kind of falling off a cliff here and it doesn't really go down to 10 hertz, so don't worry about that. But first of all, I think we are definitely getting some compression with this blue line here. So let's get rid of that blue line. So the green line, we do look to be getting some compression here as well. So for curiosity's sake, at 20 hertz, we're at 107.6 and 105.1. So yeah, the green line we're definitely compressing as well. So you can kind of see it here. It gets a little bit closer to this orange line, and even here it's a little bit closer to the orange line. So unfortunately we can't use that green line as well. So we'll use this orange line as our max output for the SVS PB16 Ultras. And again, this is two of them in my room. Now let's do the D8000 Pro. So let's just highlight all of the D8000 Pros. Okay, so clearly we can't use this green line for the D8000 Pro because we are compressing. And we can't use the red line either. It's looking a little bit compressed here, but this purple line looks pretty good. It looks to be evenly spaced all the way across. We can use that as our max output for the D8000 Pro. Here we have the two compared. So this is two PB16 Ultras in my room versus the D8000 Pro, which is measured in the front right hand corner of my room. So for the most part here, the single D8000 Pro is kind of outperforming. You do get a little bit more output here from the the dual PB16s, but it kind of falls off a cliff after this. This is at 17 hertz at 107 dB. The D8000 Pro is at almost 105 dB. But at 20 hertz, you have a pretty big difference here. 111 dB for the D8000 Pro and 105 dB. But there you have it. You do get a little bit slower of a roll-off with the D8000 Pro versus the SVS. Now keep in mind that I am quite certain I measured the SVS in normal mode. That's typically what I'll measure a subwoofer at. So this will be the two SVS PB16s in normal or standard, and then I measured the D8000 Pro and the D9000 in their normal mode, ported as well. So this is as close to apples as I can get. As you can see at 10 hertz here, we're still almost 92 dB on the D8000 Pro, and we're 79 on the dual PB16s. So two PB16 Ultras is going to be pretty close to one D8000 Pro. But let's see how it compares with the D9000 now, which is the 18-inch Tonewinner subwoofer. So here's the measurements for the D9000. Let's just get rid of this one to see where it's compressing. So for the most part, most of these lines look pretty good, but this upper line does look to be compressing just a little bit. It's not even that much, but since we are doing a comparison, for the interest of comparison, we don't want any compression. And I would say that this brown line's looking pretty good. It's looking pretty much the same across. Now in these lower frequencies, you do get a little bit of anomalies because the subwoofer isn't tuned super low. So in these really low frequencies, you do get these anomalies, but let's just ignore that because that has nothing really to do with the overall output because it is tuned a little bit higher. But I just wanted to show kind of what its performance is below 10 hertz as well. So this -15 is going to be our max output for the D9000, and then we'll go back to the -6 volume of the two PB16s. And pretty much similar story here. The PB16s seem to have a little bit more output in some of these nulls. But keep in mind that this is two subwoofers, so it is going to have a little bit smoother response across the room versus me measuring these Tonewinners, which are just a single subwoofer. So some of this could just be the fact that you're having a smoother response across the room because there's two subwoofers in the room. But for the most part, I would say the D9000 is outperforming both of these PB16s in almost all the frequency range. You get significantly more output here in the 30 to 55 hertz range. You're getting quite a bit more at 20 hertz. You're at almost 113 dB at 20 hertz with the D9000 Tonewinner and only 105 with the two SVS PB16s. So again, you're getting excellent output from these budget side of things. Now when I say budget, I mean budget for high output subwoofers. These aren't budget when you incorporate all subwoofers together. They're high output, so you want to compare them to other high output subwoofers, and they are on the budget side of that category. So there you have it. Both of these Tonewinner subwoofers are competing very well against two SVS PB16 Ultras, which is about $5,800 US versus the $22.99 and $23.99 for the Tonewinner subwoofers. So pretty impressive, I would say. All right, so let's move on. I actually did combine the Tonewinner D8000 Pro and D9000 and compared it to these dual SVS PB16s just to show you what two of these subwoofers can do against two PB16 Ultras. So let's load up that measurement here. All right, so let's remove the, well, we already know that the two SVS was at +6 or -6 volume. So let's see what compression is with the D8000. I'm going to have to increase these limits here. Okay, so this is the D8000 Pro and the D9000 together. So this green line you are compressing in the lower frequency, so we can't use that one. I would say the red line is looking pretty good, to be honest. There might be some very slight compression here and there, but not really too noticeable. So you know what we'll do? We'll start off with this purple line, because this red line might have like half dB compression here and there. As you can see, no comparison here whatsoever. The PB16s are putting out 105 dB at 20 hertz, and the D8000 Pro and D9000 are putting out 117 dB at 20 hertz. At 15 hertz, we're putting out 109 dB with the two Tonewinner subs, and only 101, so an 8 dB increase there. Like there's no real comparison here. If you're looking for nice, clean, good output, these two Tonewinner subs are going to outperform two SVS PB16s. Do they look as nice? No, but when it comes to output, absolutely, they are outperforming the SVS PB16s. That's just facts here. All right, so let's move on to the JTR. No, sorry, as a bonus, I did compare the D8000 Pro and D9000 to the SVS PB3000 because I know there's a lot of you out there with the PB3000 wondering if this is going to be a good upgrade if you upgrade it to one of these subwoofers. So let me show you what it looks like. We already saw that it outperforms, or that these subwoofers outperform two PB16 Ultras, so I think it's pretty obvious that it's going to outperform the PB3000. But here we have the PB3000, so this green line is clearly compressing. This orange line is clearly compressing. The blue line, you know what, just to do the PB3000 a favor, it is compressing a little bit here and there. It's obvious compression, but it's not crazy compression, so we'll use that as a max output just for fun. And then we already know that the D8000 Pro was at minus 15. No, sorry, my bad. It was at minus 18, where there was absolutely zero compression for the D8000 Pro. So there you have it, 20 hertz. The PB3000 is at 101 dB, 111 dB on the D8000 Pro. At 15 hertz, we're at 102 dB on the D8000 Pro, and 92, so that's 10 dB. And just across the frequency range, guys, you're getting significantly more output. So yes, this would be a very, very noticeable upgrade if you upgraded from a PB3000 to either the D8000 Pro or the D9000. But speaking of the D9000, let's have a look at it. It was not compressing at negative 15, so we don't have to look at that again. But there you have it. Again, significantly more output than the PB3000. 101 dB at 20 hertz. And 113 dB at 20 hertz. And then you have this big peak up here at 32 hertz, 117 dB versus 103. That's 14 dB. That is incredibly noticeable in your room. Now keep in mind that the PB3000, I believe it's priced at $1599. You can correct me in the comments if I'm wrong, but it's around the $1,500 to $1,600 range US dollars. So it is less money, so keep that in mind, than the D8000 Pro or the D9000, which are $2299 or $2399, depending on which one. So they are more money, so let me point that out. But I just wanted to show the comparison here because I did have people asking. All right, let's move on now to the JTR CAP2400. Okay, so this is the JTR CAP2400, but we are definitely compressing on this blue line. As you can see, it's a lot closer to this green line, so we can't use that as the max output for the JTR. Now this green line, you know what, we've been pretty picky with the other ones, but I think we're compressing with this green line as well. 105.2, 107.5, 99.8, 103. So we're getting our 3 dB there, but not at the ultra low end. But you know what? Since it is so hard to tell, I'll give it the benefit of the doubt, and we'll call that green line as the max output for the JTR. So now we need to check the measurements on the D8000 Pro. So the red line we can't use for the D8000 Pro. There does, oh, you know what? The red line is not compressing much, but we won't use it. This purple line seems to be pretty good. Yeah, it looks like we're not really compressing on this purple line, so minus 18. Okay, and then the JTR was this minus 17 line. So as you can see, the D8000 Pro at 20 hertz, or even starting at 15 hertz and up, is putting out quite a bit more than the JTR CAP2400. Below 15 hertz, there's no question the JTR is outperforming. You're getting a lot more output in these lower frequencies. So at 15 hertz or 15.23 hertz, they're the same, but then they start to deviate. So at 10 hertz, you're looking at 105 dB still with the JTR, which is very commendable. I mean, JTR is kind of known as the low-end king, so that's no surprise there. And then in the D8000 Pro, you're looking at 93.6 dB at 10 hertz. So if you really want this really low-end output, then clearly the JTR is the way to go. But you're going to be missing out on a lot of punch and a lot of hard-hitting frequencies, which are these higher frequencies. Okay, but let's see how it compares to the D9000, because the JTR CAP2400 is also an 18-inch subwoofer, and so is the D9000 Pro. So the D9000, we can't use that brown line. That is clearly compressing. The blue line looks to be pretty good, I think. Yeah, let's keep that blue line. And then we were at -17 with JTR. So again, very similar results here. You're getting more output in the low end with the JTR, but at 14.5 hertz is where they kind of merge and have the exact same output. And then at 10 hertz, the JTR is still putting out 105, like we already stated, and then 94 with the D9000. But then at 20 hertz, you're looking at 114 dB on the D9000 and 99 on the JTR. So all this output's going to be incredibly noticeable with most movie content. But again, if you really like that really low stuff, which does have some movie content, but there's not a lot down there, then clearly JTR is still the king. So to put it simply, if below 14.5 hertz is really important to you, you're going to get more with the JTR. But if the frequency range above that is important to you, you are getting quite a bit more with the D9000 versus the JTR CAP2400. Now let's see what it looks like with room size small, which reduces the low end, but it should give you more headroom in the higher frequencies. Let's see if that's true here. Okay, so you can see that we get more output across the board, and it's a flatter response with the room size set to small, which I kind of equated to the D8000 Pro and D9000 being set to normal, so that's what I have them set at here. I think the purple line we are getting some compression, but the green line we are not, so we'll keep that green line, or teal line. So this is going to be our max output for the JTR. Really good response and pretty flat down to almost 10 hertz. Then the D8000 Pro, we are pressing on this green line, so we can't use that one in normal mode. The orange line is looking pretty good. There is some ever so slight compression, so in the interest of comparison, we won't use that line. Okay, so this is our max output for the D8000 Pro, and then let's put up the JTR CAP2400. So again, you're getting more output below 16.5 hertz. You're getting more output from the JTR. At 20 hertz, though, you're getting almost 105 dB with the JTR, and you're getting 111 dB with the D8000 Pro. At 10 hertz, the JTR is outperforming. The D9000 or D8000 Pro is almost 92 dB, and we're looking at 98.6 dB. Almost 97 dB with the JTR. So it does close the gap a little bit here, and it closes the gap a little bit over here. I would say that they're pretty equal now for the most part in these upper frequencies. In some areas, the JTR is winning. In some areas, the D8000 Pro is winning. But again, a lot of this has to do with my room and the nulls and peaks of my room. But at this peak here, the JTR is 113, and the D9 or D8000 Pro is at 115. But other than that, pretty much the same as before. You get more low end from the JTR if that's what you're looking for, but above 16.5 hertz, the D8000 Pro is holding its own, outperforming in some areas. But both fantastic subwoofers, both with a lot of output. Let's see how the D9000 compares to the 18-inch JTR CAP2400. So I'm guessing this red line is going to be our compression, even though there's not much there. But we will use this purple line as our max output for the D9000. So you can see that the D9000 does outperform a little bit more from 15.8 hertz up to 49 hertz. You do get a bigger gap here versus the D8000 Pro. But again, it's pretty similar in the upper frequencies. I would say I'd give the win to the D9000 Pro for sure. But below 15.7 hertz, JTR is clearly taking that low frequencies, which we kind of knew already. JTR is kind of the king of that. So the D9000 is 92.5 hertz at 10, or 92.5 dB at 10 hertz. And the JTR CAP2400 is at 98.7 at 10 hertz, and then it does outperform down to 5 hertz, but they're rolling off pretty steep at that point. Same with the D9000. But if 20 hertz and up is kind of important to you, then I'd give the win to the D9000. At 20 hertz, the JTR is at 105 dB or almost, and the D9000 is almost 113 dB. So that's a pretty big difference that you're going to experience in the room, but you're also going to experience a lot more shaking with the JTR when it comes to low frequency stuff. So if you have a movie that does have a lot of content or base content below 15 hertz, JTR is definitely going to make you feel that more, but anything above 15 hertz, I'd say the D9000 is going to make you feel that a little bit more in your room. So there you have it, guys. The D9000, D8000 Pro stack up pretty well, even when compared to something like the JTR CAP2400 when it comes to their output. All right, last but not least, let's compare the D8000 Pro and D9000 to the Arendal 1723 2V. I measured the 1723 in its deep mode, EQ1, which increases the low end more, but we can have a look here if you want at what the differences are between the EQ modes just to prove it to you. So this is volume -27, so don't worry about the volumes here. Let's get rid of these two. So don't worry about the volume here, it's just you're worried about the response itself. So EQ1 being this red line is clearly the most low end. So I would call that the deep mode, and that's why I measured the D8000 Pro and D9000 in their deep mode, because that's how I measured the 1723. So we'll clear those, because the rest are all EQ1 measurements, which is the lower frequencies, and this is a without arc, without any room calibration. And then I did show what the response is below 10 hertz on one of the measurements, just to show that it's fallen off a cliff after 10 hertz, so there wasn't much purpose for me to measure it down to 5 hertz. So we'll just get rid of that one. So clearly this top line is compressing. You're getting a lot closer to this brown line. So we can't use that line. This brown line does look to be pretty good for the most part. It does seem to have a pretty even gap. It does start to maybe compress here in the low end a little bit, and maybe here as well. So you know what? We weren't really cutting the Tonewinners any slack when it comes to compression. So we won't use that line, we'll use this blue line for the 1723 2V. And in deep mode, I'm pretty sure we were at -18 on the D8000 Pro for our max output. But let's have a look again just to make sure. We'll get rid of this blue line for the 1723. So yeah, the orange line is compressing, I would say. Yes, it is, but very little. The blue line doesn't seem to be any compression. So yeah, so -18 for the D8000 Pro. And then here's the 1723 2V. So below about 14.5 hertz, you do get a little bit more output. Remember, it falls off a cliff after 10 hertz. So somewhere around here, you would be crossing over again. But we're not too concerned about that. At 10 hertz, you're getting a couple more dB, maybe 96 on the Arendal and 93.6 on the Tonewinner. But then above 14.5 hertz, so let's look for 15. So yeah, 2 dB more at 15 hertz, and then a much more noticeable difference at 20 hertz. The Tonewinner is at 112.3 at 20 hertz, and the Arendal's at 105. So that's definitely output that you're going to notice. And then in the higher frequencies, I'd say they're pretty close after 50 hertz or so. They seem to be, if you average that out, they seem to be kind of close. Although the D8000 Pro is probably still outperforming it for the most part, but not as much as these other frequencies. So all in all, I'd say that the D8000 Pro is pretty well outperforming the Arendal subwoofer when it comes to output. This is all going to be pretty noticeable in your room. So I would say if you're looking for output, this is an upgrade, unless you really want this little bit of frequency range between 14 hertz and probably somewhere around 9 hertz or 8.5 hertz. The Arendal would be outperforming before it crossed over again, given this this line here. But let's have a look at the D9000 now. D9000, so we can't use this pink line, it's definitely compressing. And so we'll use the -15 line for the D9000, and then it was this line for the Arendal 1723. And as you can see, like I've stated in the past, the D9000 does have a little bit more low end than the D8000 Pro. The D8000 Pro does seem to punch a little bit more, have a little bit more in the higher frequencies. So you can see that this kind of closes the gap on the lower frequencies at 13.7 hertz. They're equal. And then at 10 hertz, the Arendal 1723 does have about a dB more. But then above 13.7 hertz, the D9000 has significantly more output. At 20 hertz, the Arendal is putting out 105 dB, and the D9000 is putting out 114. That's 9 more dB. You're definitely going to feel that. At 32 hertz, you're looking at 109.6 on the Arendal and 117 on the Tonewinner D8000. And then they do meet up again here at 53 hertz, and then they're kind of equal here. Like, it's hard to say for sure because of the nulls in my room, but I'd say they're somewhat even after 50 hertz ish. But I'd still say that the gaps are bigger between the D9000. So I'd say that the D9000 is probably still outperforming it, but it's a little bit closer and harder to tell because of the nulls in my room. But overall, I say you're going to get much better performance from the D9000. It's going to be noticeable performance, especially in these frequency ranges from about 53 hertz down to 13.7 hertz. As you guys can see from those measurements, the Tonewinner D8000 Pro and Tonewinner D9000, considering their price point being kind of on the budget side of high output subwoofers, they're stacking up pretty well when it comes to output. I just wanted to make this video because every time I do release a video on these Tonewinner subwoofers, I get a lot of questions as to how they stack up versus some other subwoofers. So there you have it, guys. This is how they stack up. I hope it really does help you out. But I also want you guys to keep in mind that you keep asking me about the output, so that is what I answered in this video. There is going to be some other differences between these subwoofers, of course, but it would have taken me so much time to cover all the differences of each of these subwoofers. So this video is specifically about output because that's what I get asked about the most. If you guys are interested in purchasing these subwoofers, I have dropped links down in the description below, and remember, there is a coupon code in the beginning of this video to give you 10% off. So if you forgot about that, make sure you rewind and get that coupon code. And even if there isn't a coupon code, guys, I really do appreciate if you use the links that I drop down in the descriptions of all my videos. It doesn't cost you guys anything extra, but it really does help out my channel. I do reinvest most of the money that I get from YouTube or from the affiliate links back into equipment that I can review and share with all of you guys, so it really does help out the channel. And if you guys do want to stay tuned for future videos, make sure that you subscribe and tick the bell icon. If you do, please take just one short second to hit that like button. I truly do appreciate it. And remember to enjoy your systems. I'll see you on the next one. Cheers.